Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're digging into a really interesting source. It's excerpts from a YouTube live stream by Krzysztof Jackowski.
Yeah. And recorded right before the Polish election silence period started, so very specific timing.
Exactly. And it's quite a mix, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. You've got this immediate, political urgency about the vote, but then the conversation just completely pivots.
Right, into these big philosophical thoughts on life and death, and then even further out into these, well, pretty dramatic visions for the future.
It really swings, you know?
Yeah.
From who to vote for right now to the nature of your soul, and then what the world might look like decades from now.
Absolutely. So our mission here is to unpack all that. We want to pull out the key insights from this really varied source material.
We'll cover his political chat, then get into those deeper spiritual views he shared about, the soul and existence.
And then finally, we'll tackle those future visions he laid out.
It's like mapping one person's thoughts across these huge scales, from the immediate vote to, 2050. It's a lot.
It is. But that's what makes these deep dives interesting, right? Seeing how it all connects. Or maybe doesn't.
Okay, so where should we start? Politics first. That was the immediate context.
So let's start there. The election was right upon them. And he made a point of sharing his own stance, didn't he? Even though he usually tries to stay apolitical in his broadcasts.
He did. He was quite open about his thinking process. Initially, he said he supported Grzegorz Braun in the first round.
He liked Braun's rhetoric, is that right? His worldview.
Yeah, he respected that, even though he also mentioned disagreeing with some of Braun's actions, calling them maybe a bit exaggerated.
Okay, but then things changed for the second round.
Right. He said he'd follow Braun's lead, since Braun apparently declared he'd vote for Nawrocki. So Jackowski said he'd vote for Nawrocki, too.
And his reasoning for that final choice is key here, I think.
Totally. It wasn't really a full-throated endorsement of Nawrocki himself, was it? It was more strategic.
He framed it as needing a check, like a vent on the power of the governing party, on Prime Minister Tusk.
Exactly. His thinking, as he laid it out, was that this kind of balance, this counterweight, is just safer for democracy. That was his stated rationale.
But here's the interesting twist, right? Even as he's deciding who to vote for, he's also saying he feels elections are becoming, well, an illusion.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong statement. He even mentioned a prediction he apparently made back in September 2024.
Oh, what was that?
Something about a strong figure emerging from outside politics who might win the presidential election. He stressed the might, the uncertainty.
And he also voiced concerns about, election interference.
He did. He pointed to things he saw happening in the media and statements from Tusk about Nawrocki, like bringing up old accusations or questioning background checks.
So in his view, this showed how high the stakes were, that it wasn't just normal campaigning.
Right. He saw it as evidence of powerful forces at play.
Okay, stepping back from the specific candidates, what did he say about the kind of president needed now?
Yeah. He had a very clear take on that. He said, in these times, a president needs to be tough, unyielding, someone who can really bargain and argue hard for the country.
No more smiling diplomacy, basically.
That's what he implied. The time for that is over, he thinks. Poland needs to be a strong player, assertive.
And he used examples of past presidents to make his point.
Yeah, he brought up anecdotes, Komorowski and Hunting, some comments about Kaczyński before the Smolensk crash that he felt were, insightful. Mentioned Kwasniewski too.
But not just to criticize them.
No, his point seemed to be that any president can be picked apart. The real focus now, he argues, should be on whether they have that necessary toughness for these times. That's the crucial quality he was emphasizing.
Yeah, it's about the role's current demands.
He also shared a little personal detail, didn't he, amidst all the politics?
Oh, yeah, his birthday. His 62nd was actually on Election Day, June 1st.
Quite a memorable birthday, then.
Definitely adds a human element.
Yeah.
Okay, so that covers his political view at that moment pretty well. The specifics, the skepticism, the leadership qualities.
Right. Now prepare for a hard turn, because the source material just pivots completely.
Okay, where does it go?
He starts responding to a listener who expressed fear. Fear about getting old, about non-existence, about death itself.
And this leads him into his core beliefs about reality.
Exactly. And he's very clear that this isn't just guessing for him. He says it's based on many cases he's experienced.
What's the core belief then?
That the soul, the self, he uses the term Joshu, it exists. And it keeps functioning after it separates from the body.
So death isn't an end?
Not at all, in his view. He describes leaving the body as an unburdening, like you're just moving out of a worn-out house, basically.
And the soul becomes what? Different.
More capable, he says, faster, more universal, freed from the body's limits. He even used words like amusing, nice, maybe even perfect to describe that state, a huge contrast to the listener's fear.
Wow. Okay, what about the relationship while we're alive? Body and soul.
He sees it as a symbiosis, but interestingly, he thinks the body actually limits the soul's potential in many ways.
Limits it.
Yeah.
But isn't being alive the point?
Well, yes, because the body also provides unique experiences the soul couldn't have otherwise. He calls them psychophysical experiences.
Like what?
Falling deeply in love with another physical person, the experience of sex. Things fundamentally tied to having a body.
I see. So existence, this life, is like a necessary detour.
Kind of. He says our eternity is interrupted by birth and death. And the whole purpose of this interruption, of having a body, is to gain these specific, unique experiences.
Okay, that's fascinating. What happens to, like, our memories, our sense of self?
This is crucial to his idea. He claims the soul takes everything when it leaves. All memories, all experiences.
Everything.
Even the people from those experiences as they exist in your memory. They all go with the soul.
So our identity is just this collection.
Exactly. He says identity is built entirely from all those memories and experiences. They become the soul's possessions.
Possessions, like things it owns.
Well, yeah, but not materially. And because the soul isn't physical, it can revisit any memory, any experience, and live it again as if it were the first time, anytime it wants.
So you carry your whole life with you, vividly accessible forever.
That's the idea. Your entire history always there.
Okay. This must tie into how he sees heaven and hell, then.
It absolutely does. He suggests we're basically collectors of experiences in life.
Hell lectors, okay.
And the kind of life you live, your intentions, how you treated people, the good or bad you caused, that directly shapes the soul's state after death.
How so?
Well, if you lived a life full of hate, anger, causing harm, the soul takes all that negative material with it.
And that creates
a personal hell, he says. The soul is basically stuck reliving those bad experiences, trapped in that negativity until the next rebirth.
Wow. And the opposite for a good life.
Exactly. If you accumulate positive experiences, act with good intentions, treat others well, you build your own unique, personal heaven.
So heaven and hell aren't places someone sends you?
Nope. Not external judgments at all. They're states you create yourself from the life you lived, the material you collected through your actions and intentions. It's all internal.
That's a very different way of thinking about it. Very personal.
It really is. It puts the responsibility entirely on how you live your life moment to moment.
Okay, so we've gone from politics to the soul and the afterlife. Where does the source take us next? Another big jump.
Another massive leap. We're heading into his future visions now, specifically looking out towards 2050.
Right, and you mentioned predicting the future is getting harder.
Yeah, he prefaced it by saying change is accelerating so fast, long-term predictions are tricky. He even wondered if they'd be comprehensible if he did sense them clearly.
But he still gave some specifics.
Oh, yes. But first, he stressed the importance of the near term, the period up to 2030. He felt the next 5 years, like a presidential term, are really decisive for Toland.
Why? Just Polish politics?
No, because of huge global shifts he sees already underway, economic, military, political. He thinks things are at an advanced stage.
Okay, so what about the 2050 vision itself? What does that look like?
It's dramatic.
Yeah.
And pretty unsettling in parts, frankly.
Okay, lay it on us.
First big thing. A massively reduced global population. He said a lot fewer people, but significantly fewer.
Significantly fewer. Wow. Any reason given?
He links it to 3 very bad things happening on the world stage before 2050.
3 bad things. Does he say what they are?
Not explicitly what all 3 are, but the context suggests conflict and perhaps other large-scale crises. He does give a rough timeline for the population loss, though.
When?
He mentioned it happening in 3 stages overall. The first major period of loss he dated between 2028 and 2033, then a second period around 2041.
2028 to 2033. It's not that far off.
No, it's not. And alongside the population drop, he sees huge geographical and political changes.
Like what? Borders changing?
More than that, he described America being reduced somehow to just the Nevada region.
Just Nevada. That's hard to picture. What about Europe?
Europe becomes 3 main areas or regions. The idea of distinct nation-states apparently fades. One of these areas forms a sort of triangle covering Poland and stretching down towards Greece,
And China.
also divided into three parts. And these parts, along with the European areas and whatever is left of America, seem to be under the influence of three main global powers or zones that basically run the world.
Okay, this is huge restructuring. What else?
Another really striking image was empty cities, large modern cities, just closed off. Empty, guarded, inaccessible.
Why? Contamination.
That's what he suggested, yes. But somehow the infrastructure is preserved, just off limits.
That's eerie. Does this connect to migration?
It seems so. He envisioned mass migration, especially Europeans, being forced to leave their countries and move south.
South where?
Africa, South America, Latin America, Australia. He specifically mentioned seeing parts of Spain becoming empty as people leave.
Forced migration on a massive scale. Is there a war in this vision?
Yes, a major world war. He specified Russia and China on one side, against America, England, France, and others on the other.
The classic East versus West alignment then.
Seems like it, and he added an interesting detail about how the war might be perceived afterward.
Oh, the narrative about it.
Yeah. He sensed that the feeling among people after the conflict, especially after that 2028-2033 period, would be that the West had tried some kind of subtle population reduction plan.
Really?
And that the East resisted this, and that, along with economic factors, was seen as the real root cause of the war. It's a vision that includes the spin, if you like.
Wow. That's a lot. A future with drastically fewer people, redrawn maps, empty cities, mass migrations, and a world war perceived in a very specific way.
Yeah, it's a sweeping, large-scale, and often quite dark picture of where things might be headed by mid-century. Quite a contrast to the personal, internal focus of the spiritual stuff.
It really is. We've definitely journeyed across a wide landscape in this source material.
We really have, from the nuts and bolts of a specific election choice, right through to the nature of the soul and building your own afterlife, and then blasting out to these huge, potentially world-altering future events.
It just shows how much can be packed into one person's perspective, doesn't it? All these different levels of concern and insight.
Exactly. And digging into it like this helps highlight those connections, those contrasts, those really surprising bits of information.
Totally. So as we kind of wrap this up, maybe something for you, the listener, to think about.
Yeah, a final thought to mull over.
Given that really intense vision of the future, the conflict, the displacement, the depopulation, how does that maybe change the way you think about his other idea, the one about building your own personal heaven through your daily life experiences?
Does that idea take on more urgency, maybe? Or seem less relevant in the face of such huge potential turmoil? How do those two pieces fit together for you?
Or another angle. Think about his skepticism, that feeling that elections are becoming an illusion. How might that connect to the seemingly unstoppable large-scale forces he sees shaping 2050? Is there a link between individual political agency or the lack of it and these bigger tides?
Lots to consider there. We hope exploring this source with us has sparked some thoughts, maybe some new questions for you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.